Hey, what's going on, guys? Pete with Auto Repair Tips. In this video, I'm working on an 07 Jeep Compass. Customer's complaint, the check engine light came on, it's hard to start, excessive cranking, and sometimes the traction control light. So the first thing I'm gonna do is put my scanner on this thing and see what we got. Let's check it out. All right, after getting the scanner on it, the first code I see is a P0522, the engine oil pressure sensor circuit is low. The second code is a misfire, P300, multiple cylinder misfire. Then there's a P0339, the crank position sensor, and a P0335, which is a crank position sensor circuit. Now that I got the codes pulled, I'm gonna take it for a test drive and we'll see how it acts. Seems to drive okay. I don't really feel any kind of misfire in the engine. A lot of times what I like to do is after I've pulled the codes, I've printed the codes, and I've test driven the car, I like to clear the codes and see which one comes back first. See if it has any kind of hard code. All right, guys, after I cleared the codes, I took it for a test drive to see if there were any hard codes in there. And what I mean by hard codes is a code that comes back immediately after you start the car or immediately after takeoff for your test drive. In this case, I didn't see any hard codes. The car did stall one time on me, so I came in and I put the computer in the misfire data section so you can look at the cylinders to see which one was misfiring, and I don't see anything misfiring at all. It's very possible that we just have a crank sensor that's intermitting. One way I like to check a crank sensor is I go into the engine data section of my computer, and if you look up here RPM speed, when you start cranking the engine, that's going to tell you how fast the engine is turning over. Sometimes if it's a great big delay, then you just have a crank sensor that's not reading it as fast as it should. So let's check it out. All right, that's not too bad. As soon as it started up, the crank sensor started reading immediately, but I'm still not going to rule it out. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. All right, guys, after test driving, now we're not listening to that. That is disruptive. That's better. All right, guys, after test driving the car, the check engine light has not come back on. So we're going to put just a few more miles on it and see what happens. Actually, it just kicked. And the traction control light's on. That's what the customer was complaining about. So I had to put a few miles on it to see what would happen. Let's go back and let's look at the codes and let's see which code popped up first. These Jeeps are famous for their crank sensors going in and out. So let's see if that's the first code that came up. It's a P300 multiple cylinder misfire and a P0355 crank position sensor circuit. The cool thing about this scanner here, if I hit fix it, it brings up a database and it's based off of over 1,000 repairs. And this repair fixed it over 400 times. Basically, it explains what the P0335 is, and it talks about the circuit, and it says that for the correction, they replaced the crank position sensor. So it's like I was saying earlier, these Jeeps are famous for their crank position sensors. So if you have some bucking in it, and that sensor pops up on a code, P0335, just go ahead and replace that sensor. You're probably going to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Jeep in the shop. I'm going to get it on a lift. I'll show you where the sensor is, and I'll show you how to replace it. Catch you in a minute. I'll put links in the description below to all the parts that we use on this car. Anything you purchase through any of them links, a small portion helps the channel, and I appreciate that. I went ahead and pulled a schematic so I could show you where the sensor is. It's located on the left-hand side of the engine, just above the bell housing. So looking at it, this is over here, and this is your transmission over here. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm gonna remove the battery access cover. You twist these tabs right here, lift the cover up and set it aside. The next thing we're gonna remove is the intake cover. That just lifts off. You know, I wanna point something out. One of the things the customer did is they went to the auto parts store and they told them they had a random misfire. And the store sold them 1, 2, 3, 4 coil packs and 4 spark plugs, which probably wasn't even needed. The only thing they needed to buy was a crank position sensor. I'm not a super big fan of going to these auto parts stores and letting them pull codes and just sell you random things. It is a waste of money. They have that scanner, and I've said it in multiple videos, just to sell you parts. All right, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the air cleaner. There's 2 clips, and I'm gonna unscrew the hose clamp right here so we can remove it, and you're gonna take a hose off. While you got it apart, always check your air filter. That looks brand new. Go ahead and remove the back side of the air cleaner. It just pops out. It's gonna be a little stubborn because it has tabs that go into rubber grommets. So you're gonna have to pull kind of hard on that. All right guys, to get that sensor out, it's located behind the engine, behind the heat shield. So the first thing you're gonna do is disconnect the O2 sensor and then remove that heat shield. This is the shield I'm talking about, it's right here. All right guys, before I remove the sensor, I'm gonna let the engine cool down a little bit. It's way too hot. I'll see you in a little while. You can do this from the top side. I'm gonna get the car up in the air so you can get a better view. All right, like I was saying, I went ahead and got it up in the air. You can do this from the top side. You'll just need to get a mirror. But if you look right here, the bottom one is a 13mm bolt and the top one is a 10mm bolt. And there's gonna be a 10mm nut up top. You remove this cover and the sensor's right behind that cover. All right, that is a 14mm bolt, not a 13. These are the 2 bolts that hold the shield on. One is a 14mm and one is a 10mm. And there's a 10mm nut. All right, this is your shield. It's kind of a stupid design to use a 13, a 10, and a 10. It could all but number just 10s. But you know, they do things like that just to work you extra hard. I'm gonna get it back up in the air so you can see that sensor a little bit better. After you remove that shield, that's your sensor right here. It is held on with a 10mm bolt. You're gonna remove that bolt right there, pull the sensor out, unplug it, and install your new one. To install the new part, it's just reverse procedure. I'm gonna give you a pro tip, guys. After you pull your codes, write down what they are. Don't go out and buy everything that's listed there because half the time that's not your problem. One code can cause a chain reaction to make other codes appear. So your best bet is to write them down, clear the codes, go for your test drive. When the light comes on, see what that light is. If it's one code, 9 out of 10 times, that's gonna be your problem, and you won't waste money like this customer did. Going to the auto parts store, man, that guy sold them cool packs and spark plugs, things they didn't even need. Remember guys, I'm here to help you guys save money, not waste money. Thanks again for watching. Catch you later.